welcome to another episode of Moments Off the Mat. I'm Taylor Miller, USA Wrestling Communications Manager. I'm joined today by Jordan Burroughs, who just had some big news this week. So thanks for joining us, and just tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life right now.
Yeah, so big news today. Made an announcement this morning that my family and I, after the Tokyo Olympics in 2021, and so in the fall of next year, we're going to be making a transition from Lincoln, Nebraska, where I've spent the last 14 years, to the PRTC in Philadelphia, where I will be spending the next 3 years to finish out my career. And yeah, it's a cool moment, cool opportunity. A lot of great things surrounding it, a lot of thought and careful consideration went into making this decision. It's the right decision for myself and my family.
You just mentioned spending the last several years in Nebraska. Can you just talk about what that experience has been like for you and how that's kind of helped you with this amazing career that you've so far?
Yeah, for sure. Who I am today is really completely based upon who I've become here. I was a young man when I arrived here on the campus of the university in the fall of 2006. So it's been 14 years that I've been here. I was young. I was uncultured. I hadn't really experienced much. I wasn't very good at wrestling quite yet. And so I was trying to figure out who I wanted to be, what my goals were, how could I achieve them, but also trying to mold myself into the person that I saw, or at least my coaches saw me becoming eventually. And so, when I first arrived here, I never imagined that I'd be in this place still 14 years later. I never imagined that I'd be a superstar in wrestling, Olympic and world champion. My life has kind of been a pretty wild ride that I've been just buckled up for and enjoying as well. So it's been a beautiful thing. I really can't complain about where I am now. I'm tremendously blessed, but a lot of who I am, I owe to everything that's been here, from my teammates to my training staff to my coaches. Who I am was established in this city and at this university. So I owe a tremendous amount to the university here.
I want to go back to your decision to move to the PRTC. What were some major factors for you? Clearly it's closer to home for you as well as for Lauren. What were some other things that played into that decision?
Yeah, so I'm really trying to start to prepare for my phase out of wrestling. One of the things that most wrestlers don't do or I think in particular, what I've seen is the natural progression for all wrestlers is just to coach. And it's like, oh yeah, I can always coach. I can have benefits and have a solid income, and I can take care of my family. But it was never my dream to coach Division I athletics and assemble a team and build this great program. I really think it's an honorable and noble profession, and I love coaches and the impact that they have on the next generation and our nation's youth. But I also appreciate freedom and flexibility and time with my family. And so I wanted to start to prepare early. I think it's something that you can do simultaneously. A lot of our ability to be passionate about things outside of wrestling has been stolen by our passion to be the very best at our sport. So then when we finally retire, we're just kind of left in this place like, okay, well, what do I do now? How do I make an income? How do I figure out what else I'm passionate about? And I've committed so much of my life to wrestling. I started at 6, I'm 32 now. So 26 years, I've been fully dedicated to just wrestling. So I wanted to figure out a way in which I could have the right network, the right type of connections to start to figure out what else I was passionate about, how to achieve my goals post wrestling, but also be in a room in which I felt like I could still excel and have quality training partners and great coaches. And that was Penn. They had everything that I needed. They have a great alumni, a great network of individuals. They are close to my home, only 23 miles from my hometown and my family. They've got a tremendous amount of resources. They've got the Beat the Streets organization right in Philadelphia, in which I can empower and impact the youth. And then they just have such a tremendous philosophy, from creating a fully tangible individual more so than just a wrestler, right? It's like life development, character development, occupational purposes outside of the wrestling forum, and then obviously being a champion as well. So it's more than just being a champion on the mat. I'm a quality competitor, and I'm a seasoned veteran. I know what I need to get in order to compete at my highest level. I just needed some other things outside of the wrestling room in order to set myself up and my family up to be taken care of moving forward.
You mentioned a few things I want to come back to, but one of those is just your goals when wrestling is over for you. What does that look like?
Yeah, I hope that, and I say this, and it is difficult to try to replicate what this last decade has looked like for me outside of the wrestling world, but I hope to be as successful, if not more successful, post-wrestling than I am now. If you look at all of the wrestlers, or at least the elite wrestlers from an international level, the guys that have gone on to have success, most of it's been through coaching. And so I am going an alternative route. And I think that my passion and my work ethic and my discipline and really my character that I built from wrestling is going to help me be successful in any endeavor that I decide to dive into. So, what it looks like for me, I think ideally I'd like to be back on the East Coast with my family, be close to my family. I would like to get into numerous business endeavors and entrepreneurship, but I also want to pursue a speaking career. I want to establish my own high performance training center back on the East Coast that really specialized in wrestling, but it was open to all athletes and within all sports arenas, and numerous other things. But I think that that's kind of where I want to begin. And then I'll start to branch out into numerous other. I have a lot of things that I like to do, and so it's very hard for me to just completely dial in on one and say this is the single thing that I want to do moving forward. I think there are a lot of things that I'd like to try and see if I can be good at it. But I'm up to the challenge. I think it'll be fun.
Before finishing your career, you're not done yet. So with this move happening after the Tokyo Olympics in 2021, what is your goal for you as far as wrestling? What's the commitment there?
Goal to win, 100%. I always want to win, no matter what. I'll never put myself in a position where I don't feel like I can be my best as a competitor. This next year is going to be really imperative for me as an athlete because I want to finish off my time here at Nebraska as an Olympic gold medalist in Tokyo. I think that would be a proper send-off for the things that we have created, built, and established here at Nebraska. And then moving on into that next phase, next season, it's the same thing, same mindset, different location. And they have a tremendous amount of great athletes there, from McKenna to Honus to Lezak to McFadden to Mark Hall. So many great guys, Rich Perry, Dan Valamont, like great guys there. And to be coached and led by an Olympic champion, it's a great fit for me. So I think from a wrestling perspective, they have the things necessary for me to continue to excel. This move was bigger than wrestling, but I don't feel like at all that I'm losing anything that I've worked to create here. I think I'm only going to improve, and I still have the desire to learn and get better and improve as a wrestler. So yeah, I think it's good. When I began this process, it was thinking about what I wanted to do moving forward. I know that, I've only considered wrestling post 2020 for a short period of time, but as I started to think about it, I wanted to really figure out, could I do it? Was I capable? And was this a realistic possibility for me? And so when I wrestled at the Pan Am Championships in March in Ottawa, I was like, man, I still feel good. This was a good weight cut. Training's been going great. I'm going to continue to prepare. But after the pandemic began and everything was postponed and delayed, I'm like, okay, let me sit back and think about, can I really do this? Do I desire to do this? And so if someone told me that I had to hang up my shoes for good and never compete again a year from now, I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to step away. I wouldn't be ready to retire. And so that's what I think this decision was based off of. Can I step away confidently now and say, I'm good, I can move on with my career or with a new season of life. And that answer is definitively a no for me. And so, I think a lot of people are like, okay, JB, what are you doing? Why don't you just retire? You've had a great career, just go step away. And I'm like, and do what? You know what I mean? Like, why would you leave something that you're still one of the best in the world at, that you love and you enjoy doing? I just don't really understand it. I think people are afraid for me to lose because they think that that will tarnish my legacy and the things that I've helped establish. But I think there's honor and nobility in what I've seen great athletes do. LeBron James and Serena Williams, Roger Federer, Tiger Woods, that they play because they love the game, not to preserve anything, not to protect their reputation, not so people can say, oh, you're really good, stop right now so you won't have any more losses. I like to compete because it's what I do. I'm a competitor, I'm a wrestler. And so I don't want to protect anything. When I step away, I want to be done with it and say, I can completely wipe my hands clean. I'm moving on. I don't have any inklings or desire to come back. I've done what I could in this sport. I've given my all, and now I can move on with complete peace. And I don't think I'm ready. I know I'm not ready to do that yet.
Yeah. Can you talk about your relationship with Coach Slay and kind of how this opportunity at the PRTC came about for you?
Yeah, Coach Slay he's been a good friend of mine for years now. We met for the first time back in 2011, and we've become friends, and he counseled me in preparation for my marriage to Lauren, and we've been on numerous trips together. We spent a tremendous amount of time, and when he was at the Olympic Training Center. So then when he went back to the PRTC in Philly, it became a second home for me. And so when I was back on the East Coast with my family, we would link up as families, and we would spend a lot of time together. And he was someone I always sought for wise counsel. And I spent a lot of time in that wrestling room there. And so he was a great connection for me. And been something that he's always kind of extended an olive branch to me. Like, hey, is this something that you're interested in? Let me know. We're always here. We've got a great program. We'd love to have you. And I started to think about, was it possible to make that transition and to still feel confident about my wrestling ability? And they've really been growing quite a bit over the last 5 years. When I got an offer from Penn back in 2015, they only had two guys in their RTC. It was Rich Perry and Danny Mitchell, and they were coached by Brian Dahl. Now, fast forward 5 years later, they've got numerous All-Americans and NCAA champions in their or NCAA finalists in their stable of athletes, and then they also have Slay as their coach. And so I think that the Penn wrestling program and the PRTC is definitely had a boost of momentum in their wrestling program, and they've got some tremendous wrestlers to commit over the last couple of weeks. And I think they're in a good place. You look at some of the Ivy League schools that are doing extremely well, like Cornell and Princeton, and they both have successful RTCs. Cornell has Hal Dake, and at one point they had Jordan Oliver, Nashawn Garrett, Yanni Giacomo Hollis. You look at Princeton, they have Pat Downey, Reese Humphrey, guys like Nate Jackson, Pat Bruckey. And so I think that the Ivy League schools are really starting to do well. They're extending their outreach to that network and those alumni, and really starting to extract those resources from these individuals and put it back into their programs. And you're seeing the success that they're being rewarded with. And so it just so happens that Philly is 20 miles from my hometown. And so it's a great thing. Whenever I'm back on the East Coast, we are regularly in Philly. Like, it's our city now, and it's become another home for us. So it only makes sense for us to go there and to live there and send our kids to school there. It's just a great place to be.
I want to ask you about Coach Slay is pretty vocal about the core values for the PRTC: faith over fear, full effort, struggle well, serve others. Which one of those sticks out to you the most? How do you identify with those?
I think all of them. I think all of them really. I would say for me, faith over fear is one that I've really lived by, and that's one that they've kind of extracted from BJ Futrell. I know that was his thing for quite a period of time. And, in this phase of life, you tend to become fearful of change. And that was the stress and the anxiety that I felt leading up to this decision and making it public, and standing behind something that I felt strongly about. But it's never easy. You always expect there's going to be some sort of pushback or resistance, and that's where fear comes into play. But I think that faith is just purely love and excitement of the possibilities that can happen if you're optimistic and hopeful. And that's what I am with this move. I think that this is my best wrestling and my best years are still ahead of me. I truly believe that. And I think that I have a lot of cool things that I'm going to experience as I make this transition over to the PRTC. And so I'm really thankful for Slave's leadership, and he is constructing something really cool in Philadelphia and the tri-state area, period. I've heard a lot of people talk about RTCs and how you have to fundraise, and ultimately, pretty much providing a lifestyle for post-collegiate athletes to maintain and pursue their Olympic and world championship aspirations. But I think it's different. It's different in Philadelphia. Like, it's more about impacting the community and really changing the ecosystem in the Philadelphia area to create individuals that can empower the youth and really change the city. And so I think that this is such a bigger decision for me than just wrestling. And Brandon Slade made that very clear when I was making this decision. Like, hey, well, you're not just coming here just to wrestle. You're not coming here just to show our guys moves and to be a part of this wrestling program. Like, we want you to be. You have the ability to be the most influential wrestler that's ever lived, and that really resonated with me. Like, my ability to have an impact on the place where I began is pretty special. And I wish that there would have been an Olympic and world champion when I was a kid that was training 20 miles from me, that was approachable and easygoing and wanted to actually give back to the wrestling community. And I started a wrestling club and, was in the streets and in the community, chopping it up with the people and giving them motivation to live their best lives. Like, I can imagine what that would have been like for me. So, to have the ability to be that guy is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And I think my legacy is going to go way beyond just what I've done on the mat. My position in USA wrestling history is solidified and world history is solidified. But I think the next platform for me to achieve legendary status is to be a man of the people. And that's the process that I'm trying to go through.
Yeah, talking with Coach Slay yesterday, he was just talking about all the opportunities that the PRTC has with just the surrounding, like you said, Beat the Streets Philly, as well as like Drexel and Penn. So
yeah,
it's exciting for you to just have so many ways you can be a mentor and a leader.
For sure.
You wish you had for yourself.
Yeah.
I want to dive in a little bit to who's at the PRTC. You mentioned some of those names before. I'll just go ahead and read some off. Hannes, McKenna, McFadden, Paul, Lezak, as well as Richard Perry, and Dan Valamont. Can you just talk about the excitement that there is to get into a room with this much talent?
Yeah, it's, this is a new era of PRTC. I was really close with the last stable of individuals that were there: Chase Pammy, BJ Futrell, obviously Rich Perry, Dan Valamont. Those were my guys. Those were the guys that I was really close with. And so I would spend a tremendous amount of time there on the East Coast, just chopping it up with those guys, breaking bread, just enjoying life in wrestling with those dudes. Those are my guys. And so it's a new role that I'm coming in, because these guys are significantly younger than I am. So they're not really my peers, but I want to them to recognize that we are teammates and we can bounce ideas off of each other and rub shoulders and empower and encourage each other. And so I think it's going to be an important position that I'm placed in, because I have a leadership role, just kind of innately, but also I want to help these guys with the process of trying to establish themselves as men and as elite wrestlers. And I have the IQ and the savviness to do that. And so it's going to be really cool. I think just when I looked at the roster and I started to see what they were capable of and the guys that they're recruiting and potentially adding to the program, like, wow, like, this is a legitimate, really good place to train. And I think instantly, with my addition, we become one of the best RTCs in the country, and they haven't been able to say that ever. And so it's a really special thing that we're creating there, and we've got really good guys there. And so that's the cool thing is I feel like going here, I'm going to have individuals that I can help sharpen, but also guys that are going to push me to reach heights that I may have not even attained yet. So it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and one of those guys being in the room being Mark Hall. My assumption is that he'll be at 74 kilos. So how do you approach training with someone every day that's going to be at that weight? I know James is going 74 for Tokyo, so but I don't know if that's how different
Yeah.
that
I
is.
mean, we managed to do it this year, James and I, before everything was postponed. But there's infinite resources in the world. Obviously, there can only be one Olympic team member, but I think that we have learned to coexist and to operate within each other's spaces and to bless each other with the ability to help one another improve. And that's pretty much the relationship that James and I had. We were friends way longer than we were competitors, and we still haven't really competed against each other in a sanctioned match. It's only been in practice, and he's helped really elevate me numerous ways. So it's been a good relationship. I don't really know yet what Marky's going to do, but I imagine that he's significantly bigger than I am. Being a 74 pounder, I think he's a tweener. So I imagine that in non-Olympic years, he'll probably be wrestling at 79 kilos. And then he probably has the frame and the capacity to go up to 86 kilos in Olympic years. And I'm only going to wrestle for a max of 3 more years there anyway. And so I think that's something that we'll address when we get there. But at this point, that's not something that I'm really worried about at all. I think that just being in the room with each other and helping each other improve is going to be really important for the both of us.
Yeah, and I'll just finish it off with this question. Can you just give us a little insight? Obviously, we'll be training at Nebraska through Olympic trials, through the Olympics, but can you just give us a little bit of insight on what the transition period might look like for you guys, or what the rest of this year into next year holds?
Yeah, this year, I don't know. I guess this is as good as mine. I have no idea what this year holds. This has been the craziest year of my life. 2020 is the most ridiculously wild year ever. Just stuff that you would never believe would happen is happening. We got babies going crazy upstairs, but it's it's one of those things where we're trying to prepare as if we have the kind of wherewithal to understand that, okay, this is going to happen. There's no certainty though that the Olympics are even going to happen next year, but we'll still prepare, of course, as things will pass, and hopefully a vaccine comes into play and numbers start to drop and pressure and anxiety alleviate and the fear starts to subside and we can start to operate as a normal society again. But at this point, we are just getting back onto the mat and trying to train as much as possible. So, I think the cool thing about this is that this is almost like a victory lap here for my time at Nebraska. I get a chance to inform the coaching staff and all the wrestlers around me that I'm going to be leaving. And so I think it'll give us an extra time of connection. Like, hey, we are going to spend one more year together. Like, let's make it the best year ever. And there's been added emphasis from Snyder and Manning that, hey, we're not going to let you leave this place without another Olympic gold medal. And that gets me fired up because I know that means, just like really hard training. It means I don't know. It's fun. It's fun. It's a fun time. I really, it hasn't really settled in yet, and as I start to think about it, it makes me a little emotional, but I'm just really thankful for the relationship that we have here. And I know that, making this announcement was relatively easy because there's still a long period of time before I actually leave this place. But, those dudes care a lot about me and I care a lot about them. And it's not going to be easy, so when we finally pack everything up and we sell our house and we got the U-Haul packed up and we're ready to head back to Philly. And we leave this place for the last time. And my picture's taken down from above my locker that I've had for, the last 14 years. It's going to be surreal, because the only person that's been here at Nebraska longer than I have is Manning. So I've watched countless wrestlers leave and countless coaches go and transition to different phases of their life. But the one mainstay has been me and Coach Manning. And so it's going to be bittersweet, but I think that we are very, very bought into the fact that I'm going to be an Olympic gold medalist this year. And I believe that. And I believe that I will win another gold medal in Tokyo.
I said that was the last one, but I am interested to hear your thoughts on a super match that's happening next week between two of your competitors.
Yep.
What do you think about that?
I think this match favors Dake heavily because it is at 79 kilos, which is his weight class essentially. Frank Chamiso's a 74 kilo guy, and he's still growing into a 74 kilo guy. So, I think it heavily favors Dake just in terms of the dynamics of this match period, especially considering that, Frank lives in New York City, spends a tremendous amount of time there. And, with the pandemic, a lot of things were shut down in that area. So I don't know if he has been training at a high level, but, you throw numbers at guys. Guys will come off their couches and off their butts and get out on the mat for the right number. But I think Dake's going to win. I think Dake's a great wrestler. He's extremely dynamic. He's got, a great skill set. He's a great athlete. I think he's going to win. So, yeah, I think Dake's going to take it.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time and congrats again on the move in a year from now. But, yeah, I wish you and your family all the best in all this.
Thanks, Taylor. Appreciate it.